Dee dee bum, bada 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 bum bum bum, da 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 dum, bada 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 bum, dee da dum, da 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 dum, da da dum bum 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 bum. Well, hello, welcome, whoever you are, wherever, whenever, however you are. Welcome to a little bit of quilting talk. I have a video where I talked about my brain dead quilt pattern. It's not a pattern, it's a method. And my brain dead quilt has evolved and become a Victorian quilt. And let me show you what I mean. The brain dead quilt system is simply you keep a bag for all your little odd scraps, the oddly shaped little pieces that are left after you cut out a dress or whatever, things that just don't fit anywhere. And you just, when the bag is full, you simply sew them together two at a time, one to one in pairs. Then you sew the pairs together, and then you keep going sewing the pieces together until you end up with something like this, And then what I like to do, there's all kinds of things you can do. You might decide this is big enough to make some kind of bag or pillow or something, or you might keep going till it's big enough to actually make a quilt. Now you might think that this is a crazy quilt, but it's not. It's a very important difference. A crazy quilt, while it has a lot of the same randomness in the pattern, it's sewn to a backing. And then you do embroidery on the seams. And what I do with my brain dead quilt is I just use, it's a way to use up all the scraps, and if I feel like I just don't have it in me to plan and measure and do all the fussy stuff that a lot of quilt people like to do, which I don't. I don't like measuring things because I always end up measuring wrong. I'm dyslexic, always have been, and that does get in the way of perceiving how things fit together. So my brain dead system, the quilt forms itself. Then I cut it into strips and sew them together into one long strip that I then roll up into what's called a jelly roll. Now at that point I set it aside and just move on to other things. But at any time, I can pull out the jelly roll, cut the strip into squares, and put it into a quilt pattern, which is what I did. So I thought I was going to proceed to make the brain dead quilt, which would be simply taking the squares that I had cut from the panel after making it into strips, and then I just surrounded them with a strip of this cloth here, just to give them a border. I put this little narrow strip of cloth around, and then I had some other panels, a collection of squares, so I made the points. And so now 35 of these, which I actually have 36 because I made 3 dozen. These will have one more strip around here and then sashing, and they will be a twin-size quilt. But in the meantime, I've been watching all these videos of people working on the Victorian crazy quilt, which the Victorian crazy quilt is very interesting. We had a real one from those 1800s that my grandmother had sewn. That was in the family. My mother had it, and she kept it in a closet and would allow us kids to use it whenever were sick, staying home from school with a fever or something. Then she would bring that out and we could use it. And it was fascinating because it was all different textures, velvets, satins, silks, all kinds of wools, and all sewn with this kind of embroidery on all the seams, right? Well, apparently what was happening in the 1800s, that's when sewing machines really took over. Between the early 1800s and the late 1800s, the clothing world changed, fashion changed, and women were able to just sew tremendous amounts of stuff. And all of these dress shops had all these scraps, so they started selling the bags of scraps. And the custom of creating a Victorian quilt by attaching the scraps, as I say, you sew them to a backing, and then showing off their embroidery skills, it became kind of a custom. And usually a Victorian quilt is just a coverlet. It doesn't have a lot of stuffing or anything in it. But anyway, I started getting interested. And of course my Brain Dead quilt is like a cousin in style. So I started trying to revive old embroidery skills that I haven't used since I was a kid. And then I ran into my nemesis, the French knot. Here are some lovely French knots that I just made, these little yellow flowers. And what always frustrated me is I would be going along making wonderful French knots, and it involves twisting the yarn a little bit, and when you put it back in, it just forms this little rosette automatically. Perfect. But then all of a sudden, I would have the problem of the disappearing knot. It would just go right through the fabric and disappear. And I never could figure out what was going on. I was so frustrated. Well, I was sewing these today, and I decided I was going to take a chance and try some French knots, and everything was going well, and then all of a sudden they started disappearing again. So I went into the great and glorious land of Utopia to find somebody to teach the French knot. And I finally, after all these years, found out what I was doing wrong, what would happen, and it's my dyslexia. Because to make a proper French knot, and they don't tell you this, I had to watch the videos several times and slow them down and re-watch them until I saw what I was doing wrong. Normally, you hold the needle pointing away from the stitch. You pull the thread up through the cloth, and then you point the needle away from the stitch, and you wind the thread 3 times clockwise, not counterclockwise, but clockwise. Then, holding the thread under your thumb, you carefully poke the needle back into the same hole and pull it through. And you get a tangled mess. That's because I let go of the thumb because I was looking at the screen. I can undo that. But anyway, it doesn't disappear. There. Can you see it? It's a tiny one, but it didn't disappear. So that was all I needed to know, was clockwise. And now, everyone out there who struggles with French knots, you know too. You pull the needle up through. I guess if you're doing it left-handed, then of course it would be counterclockwise, because it's how you turn it in relation to your body and the fabric. You pull the thread up through. You wind the needle 3 times clockwise. Then you hold the thread with your thumb while you put the needle back in the hole. And gently pull it down. There. This one's got a bit of a tail on it because I got the tail caught, but that's okay. Ooh, there. And you get, can I show it properly? You get a little yellow rosette. So that's my adventures in quilting. This one, I can't remember. There's several names of people who are wonderful embroidery teachers. And the one that I was watching to get these border stitches from, her name is Lisa, but I can't remember her channel name. Well, I'll remember it and I'll put it in the comments or the description later. Then another one is Jennifer Clouston. Then there's Kate and Marion. Marion is an Australian woman who does fantastic, beautiful, natural, botanical embroidered designs. She also does a lot of work inspired by India. And Jennifer Clouston also does the botanical designs. And Kate does a lot of the wonderful slow stitching and kind of abstract meditative stitching that is it's somewhat inspired by a lot of Japanese and Asian work, but it's just a beautiful craft in and of itself. And that's what I've been working with. So I wanted to share that, though, because I was so happy to finally solve. Now, if I decide I want to do French knots, I can just do them. I don't have to struggle with the problem that I might be, it might be an act of futility. And this is going to be quite the quilt by the time it's done. I did all this today. So if I work on one square a day, I don't have to do it every day in a row, but it'll be a total of 36 days. Because if I can do all the embroidery on one square in the course of one day, and then so it'll be 36 days to finish all of that, because I've got the assembly all done. I've got this whole stack of squares ready to go. And they're going to be dark and light in the design. I've got half look like this, dark, and half are light. So all I have to do is the embroidery, and then the assembly will go very quickly. Once I get all the embroidery done, it won't take very long to assemble them. So that's what I've been doing with my time, and enjoying it. The challenge of learning new stitches is pretty wild. I think I started, yeah, right here. I started a stitch booklet where you do a little row of every stitch as you learn it. These are the stitches I've always known, and I'm going to start adding these other stitches that I'm learning as I go along. So I will eventually have a quilter's stitch booklet. So leave a shout out in the comments below. Let me know if you enjoy this and what you're into. If you've got a favorite channel on any kind of sewing craft or other craft, go ahead and put it in the comments. Oh, I want to say something else too. I've done a few videos lately about cooking, and I owe you all a cheese video, but I have to gather all the ingredients to do a batch of cheese. This cooking stuff that I'm doing requires tending it, watching the temperature, stirring periodically and stuff. So it's perfect. I sit at the table with my hand sewing, and I have something on the stove that's, you got to bring the milk to a certain level of simmer and then stir it and all that to make cheese. And I can safely say that I have achieved making something like feta cheese. But it's made with cow's milk, because feta cheese is goat's and sheep's milk. That's why it has a distinct aroma. But I make kind of a cottage cheese that's dry enough to be similar to feta, and I put the herbs in it to give it that flavor. So it's fake feta, and I make cream cheese, and make yogurt and butter. I've been making my own butter, so that's pretty good. I'm going to see just how much I can produce to have a supply of cheese ahead from my little prepper pantry, and I'm looking forward to a good time. So I will do that video. I think I'm planning to do some shopping later this week, and I'll pick up, I have to pick up a couple of gallons of, I have to go to the other side of town to get the right kind of milk, even though I was using the wrong kind of milk, because most of our milk is ultra pasteurized, and that's just not, it's been heated to too high of a temperature. A lot of the stuff that turns into cheese has been just cooked out of it. But if you can get regular pasteurized milk, then you can make excellent cheese. So the cheese that I made that came out pretty good was using the wrong kind, so it can be done. And now I'm going to be getting the regular cheese. I have to the regular milk that's not ultra pasteurized. I have to go to the other side of town to get that. They do sell it closer to here, but the store that sells it closer to where I live charges twice as much as the regular stores. So I'd rather make the trip and get about 3 gallons of the stuff and really go to town with it. And I'll do a video all about that when I'm making it. Yeah, so again, if you're into all this stuff, let me know. If you're an urban prepper, I'm what you might call an urban homesteader, and I don't do the prepper thing of having 3 acres of land and your own cows and chickens, but I live in an apartment and try to be as prepped as possible for whatever, you know, because anything can happen, and it doesn't have to be a massive social collapse or anything. If you just have a local problem with a blackout or something, or a storm, then yeah, you got to be prepped. So that's what I like to do. And learning to make these basic foods, the foods that you really seem to buy all the time at the store, is really great, because really all I have to buy are such basic ingredients that I spend about 1/4 to 1/3 of the money it takes to buy everything already made. And, you know, a lot of people can't do it because they don't have the time, but hey, I have the time, so I may as well do it. And have fun doing it and encouraging other people. Because if I can learn at my age, you can too. So, anyway, that's it for my 15 minutes of fame. I know I'm supposed to be doing the daily half hour. Well, today you get 18 minutes. And I'll try to come back to my daily half hour. Denise Matteau, over and out.